we're good.
Cool, cool. Just wait a minute for a couple more people. Looks like we've got a couple people on YouTube too. It's good. We're going to do non-presenting people video off though, Irvin, but good to see you're doing well. Irvin, a long-time attendee of our in-person events.
Yeah, I've loved coming to so many of the events.
Yeah, I think in particular, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Irvin, you built like a robot at New York, right? That was running I think on Thunder Chain, actually on Thunder Core.
Yep, and this time we're doing something different, which is using NFTs and reprogrammable robots.
There you go. Always a robot. Okay, cool. All right, let's look to kick off the AMA here. Might be some more people to trickle in, but we'll just let them in. Awesome. Okay, well, first of all, big thank you to everybody from the USDC team being on the call here. We have Pete, we have Nemil, we have Erik, we have Joao. So it's a full house. I'm excited to be asking everybody a bunch of questions today. And of course, a big thank you for the USDC team in supporting this event. You know, without our sponsors, we're not able to run these events for our attendees for free at least. So really help us offset the cost of running these, and we're really grateful for their support and being able to run this event for everybody. So, and of course to have their tech supported at the event as well. So USDC is, as we'll get into, really useful stablecoin for basically anybody's project that wishes to have some sort of stable asset involved. So I guess big thank you. And I guess without further ado, kind of kick off the question side of things, just so that everybody who knows in the chat, basically what will happen is I'll start some nice motivating questions, and then if anybody else is following along has any questions, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom or ask the question in chat, and we'll come to you and we'll hand it off to you. So I think kind of a good place to start. Typically I start these off with kind of the history, but there's a lot of people here, so maybe we'll kind of start with I guess just kind of the definitions, if you will. So I guess what is USDC, and kind of a little bit about kind of the history of the project, if you will. I'm not sure who's best to field this one, but would kind of love to kind of get a sense of sort of like A, what is it, and then B, kind of how to get started.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on, and happy for folks to jump in as well. I think out of the four of us, I would guess Erik Tierney on the Circle side is probably the person who has been involved with the project for the longest. So maybe I'll share some part and then he can add. But as you said, like starting with the definitions, USDC is obviously a fiat collateralized stable coin. I think Circle initially gravitated towards the idea of building a stablecoin solution back in, I think, late 2017. And given the philosophy that we always had as a company, that we would bring services to businesses and consumers, financial services that are based on crypto and public blockchain technology, but we do that in a regulated and compliant way, and primarily based out of the US, and with partnerships with US domiciled banks and partners. So we thought that there was a space in the market for that kind of fiat collateralized stablecoin solution, and then the rest is really history. I think we had an intent to use that solution internally, given the products that we offered at the time. We had peer-to-peer payments products, consumer investment products, and also a crypto exchange in the Poloniex operation. And we wanted to utilize that technology internally, as well as we knew that it was going to be an interest externally. And I don't know, Erik, if you want to add anything, any interesting historical elements about how that all came about, the first few lines of code, things like that.
No, Erik, I'm not sure you're coming through all right.
I think it might be your headset.
Yeah, I think the headphones or the microphone are not totally plugged in. Kind of the idea I'm getting.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just saying, yeah, if we go back to when we had products like Circle Pay, you know, we had Bitcoin integration in there, and we kept trying to do things like with other companies and other countries and stuff. We kept trying to use things like Bitcoin for it, and kind of we kept running into all these like kind of stumbling blocks, and pretty much everything was kind of pushing us towards like, well, really, we just want like dollars on a blockchain. You know, we want like programmable dollars. So eventually we kind of, you know, learned our lesson and stopped doing it, you know, stopped trying to do it with like Bitcoin. And we said, okay, well, maybe we should just kind of try to build this as like a industry standard kind of thing. And so that's kind of like where USDC kind of came about.
Gotcha. Cool. And then maybe a question for everyone, kind of each by each. I'd kind of be curious about sort of, you know, obviously this is the effort is that what you've decided to spend your time on, right? And your working hours and that kind of thing. I guess, you know, it's one thing to say that, you know, just putting $1 on the blockchain, that's like a US peg thing, like, but also, you know, I'm kind of curious about sort of like why, you know, for each of you, it's personally important to you. And it's possible maybe some of those overlap reasonings, but I guess I'm, you know, really curious about sort of, you know, maybe thinking a little bit more on the impact side or otherwise kind of motivations for wanting to work on the project. Yeah, I would just kind of be curious about kind of the personal reasons for why you've chosen to work on USDC. Maybe we'll start with Pete.
Yeah, so, you know, let me tell you a story. When I interview candidates or meet with people at conferences, I like giving away free crypto and showing them what they can do with it. And all I ask for in return is that they download Coinbase Wallet, which is a non-custodial wallet that Coinbase provides that you can download for free. And almost everyone says, sure, why not, right? Like nobody says no to free money, right? So I give them some free ETH, about $5 in ETH. This was when like gas prices were low, like 1 gig away. And once they get the free ETH from me, you know, they want to know what they can do with it. So I show them a bunch of dApps that they can use. So first thing I show them is Uniswap, and I have them navigate Uniswap and exchange some ETH for USDC. And then I show them how to use Compound to start earning interest on the USDC they've just gotten. You know, like I said, you know, this was when gas prices were like 1 gig away, and also Compound was paying about 5% interest for USDC deposits. I think it's a lot lower now, but back then it was pretty good, and it was a lot better than like what most bank accounts were paying, right? And this demo almost always blew people's minds. You know, they went from zero, like not having used crypto before, to owning first crypto, to earning interest using crypto in minutes. And and you didn't have to like fill out forms. You know, there was no human interaction needed. Well, I was the only human interaction they had, and they didn't have to like pass a credit check or anything. You know, and I could have given the exact same demo to anybody around the world. You know, I could have given the exact same demo to someone thousands of miles away in a different continent. Even like the most remote like parts of the world, as long as they have a smartphone and access to the internet. And this is incredibly powerful. You know, I think the economic and financial infrastructure around the world. I mean, we live in in a developed country, and this is not something that we think about. But in many parts of the world, people don't even have bank accounts. And the fact that this technology can be used to provide access to modern financial system to anyone around the world, like that's really powerful. And that's what got me excited about, working on, crypto and USDC. That's just a little story of mine. And, I don't know if some of those people that have tried Uniswap with my free ETH are listening. But if you are, you can also get 400 free uni. It's worth about $1,200 now, I think. Yeah, it's like a free iPhone. So go claim it if you haven't.
Yeah, pretty good deal. Awesome. How about Nemil?
So the question I always ask people is basically, what is your origin story in crypto? And I think that's what you're asking me. But it's basically that I think about the world of like Batman and how he became a superhero. And almost everyone, whenever I go to the ETH events, I almost always ask that question: is how do you get involved in ETH? So I think for me, there are like two main experiences. Number one was I worked actually for banks. And if you've ever done IT work for banks, you realize just how dilapidated the system that everything like runs on is today. And so for context of the US over the last 34 years, there's been a tremendous amount of consolidation, but they still are running COBOL mainframes in a lot of cases to be able to run the IT stack that we run on. So I remember doing that experience and I'm like, this is the best we got, in the year 2010 or in the year 2020. So that was number one. That I think one thing that just radicalized me against how poor the stack was. The second thing was that I spent a year at the Gates Foundation, the World Bank, and building a mobile payments provider in India. And so for context, mobile payments was taking off about 2009, 2010. And I went to India and I was helped set up one of the first microfinance mobile payment pilots. So basically using mobile payments to cut down the price of microfinance delivery. And so I think what I realized with that system was that it's, again, all these APIs are so privileged. Most people can't access them. And when I compared that to the experience I was used to on normal coding or normal API you might be used to, like a Twilio, it was just so much more complex. And I think that just made me realize just how valuable the need was and what the types of things we could do to fix that. And so I remember in 2015 when Ethereum launched, the APIs on day one were in a lot of ways better than almost all APIs available in the traditional financial stack, right? And so this was a world, at least it was pre-Twilio, it was pre other types of banking APIs. And I think that takeaway was just that look, this is so huge. If we can add stable dollars on top, programmability, right? And the non-custodiability, all these other guarantees that Ethereum offers, this is really just changing the types of financial services you can offer. So I think those are my two experiences, was working with existing banks. And number two was seeing the pain points up front of microfinance and how we could potentially offer really powerful financial services directly to groups of customers like that around the world.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's definitely big kind of global impact is huge. And yeah, I mean, the technology stack is exciting and enables all these things very easily. And no, that's great. Awesome. Maybe Joao, turn over to you.
Yeah, I share two things, but I share one on the Nemil's experience. I also worked for banks in Brazil and then in Europe, and yeah, same exact experience. Just completely shocked, having come from other engineering. I am a software engineer by training, so I have worked on sort of networking and other contexts where technology is pretty sophisticated and always kind of pushing the state of the art for things like mobile networks and things like that. And then eventually I landed on banking, and I was like, really? Are you guys serious that this is the kind of stuff you're using? First of all, as Nemil said, there's a bunch of core competencies on a bank that are running on a mainframe and software from the 70s that basically nobody knows how to maintain anymore, and people just accept certain bugs as features. And then I've seen people doing reconciliation of consumer balances on bank accounts with Excel spreadsheets at the end of the day. I mean, it's just mind blowing. But the thing is, we learn to accept that that's just the way it is, right? You learn to accept that you look at sometimes the balance on your bank account, and you kind of know that that's not right, but you're willing to wait another day because maybe they're going to fix that up, and transactions are not properly settling yet. And that's just crazy, given the amount of sophistication that we have in the software world today, for that still to be the case. So the moment I entered crypto, and I entered crypto, initially personally, and then eventually through Circle professionally, I just knew that that there had to be a way for that to be the new infrastructure for money, because it was so much more robust and sound. But then the other experience that I had as well was in Circle. Then I helped to work with Erik and with a bunch of other folks on this peer-to-peer payments product that we had, and we built all the infrastructure for fiat on ramps in the US, and then we ported that infrastructure to Europe, at least. In Europe, you know, is not that homogeneous if you consider things like the UK and the Eurozone. So even in those three kind of geos, right, the US and UK and Europe, you realize that if you want to build a global financial service, a global financial product, it is, and you want to connect to these traditional, ways of implementing infrastructure for money, is just so complicated. It's just so expensive. It's just so time consuming. I mean, literally, it's going to easily take you a year to deploy a system like that in every one of these regions, given the banking and processing partnerships you need to establish, the compliance licenses, all the other relationships, and then having to cope with very old APIs and very brittle and siloed way of doing things. And then nothing is interoperable. You do it for that region and you need to repeat it again if you want to go to Africa, to East Asia, and so on and so forth. And then once we started thinking, as Erik said, around, what we really want is $1 on the blockchain. What we really want is not hold consumer funds in an FBO bank account, but hold them in wallets, not connect to a payments processor, but use blockchain for transferring funds in and out. It's just very powerful. And I see today companies that with a much smaller team, using this technology, they have the ability to build a product that is inherently global from the get-go. They don't have these artificial silos that are usually put in place by traditional infrastructure for money, as I call it. So I think for that reason, it's tremendously powerful. And I've seen the value of, in comparing what I've done 5 years ago to what we do now, how much more superior it is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, given how many years the kind of traditional finance world has been kind of developing and how many different silos they have, it's basically almost easier to just kind of, in a way, start from scratch, right? Just kind of re-engineer what we need to do. And yeah, I mean, that system is archaic. I mean, if you ever sent a wire transfer, I mean, that's all you need to know, right? Because it's quite a tough system to work within. And then, yeah, last but not least for this question, Erik, I'm kind of curious about sort of if you can echo any of this or if there's anything novel or anything.
Yeah, I mean, they've stolen a lot of things I would have said. But I'd like to add on what Joao was saying, that I'm really excited about how USDC is kind of an enabling technology. So we work on it and we put it out there, but then it enables developers all over the world to just kind of take it and run with it and do whatever they want, right? Banks were not innovating on anything, right? They weren't doing payments or anything to make moving money easier, right? Wires and SWIFT, but it's all, giant pain in the ass. But by putting USDC out there and now making it easy so that anybody can get it, now pretty much anybody can just start interacting with it on Ethereum, and just if they have an idea, they can just get some USDC and they can go run and implement it. And if it's a good idea, then great, it'll succeed. And if it's not, then well, it won't. But that's okay too. And it's just really cool to see all the things that people are building with it. Just in all the DeFi space and stuff. That stuff's really cool. And I think there'll probably be way more stuff in the future. And we don't even know what it is right now. But that's something that kind of gets me really excited about working on it, is seeing what others will actually do with it.
Totally. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, awesome. So I guess kind of want to chat about sort of, I guess, the developer experience and sort of just the usage of it actually. I mean, for anybody who checked the summit out last weekend or last Friday, Pete kind of talked about the process of upgrading USDC to V2. I'm kind of curious about sort of if someone could maybe provide an overview of sort of what are some of the new features of V2 and how do those kind of help enable kind of new ways of interacting with the coin. I'm not sure who would be best to take that question, but would love to kind of know a little bit more about V2 and how it was an upgrade.
I think Pete himself maybe might be best suited for it.
Okay. So yeah, I would say the biggest feature is the gasless sense that we added, and previously, in order to move USDC or use USDC in DeFi products or other dApps, you also had to buy and hold and own ETH, and that wasn't a very good user experience, to be honest. On centralized exchanges, it wasn't a problem because they abstract it away and they pay the gas for you, but for non-custodial wallets, it was confusing a lot of people. A dApp requires USDC, and so they buy USDC and move USDC to their wallet, MetaMask or Coinbase wallet, and only to realize that they also need ETH to be able to actually use the dApp. That was confusing a lot of people, and Coinbase also has this initiative. Well, this is not just Coinbase's, but Coinbase is a big part of it, called Give Crypto. And we've been doing some sort of a universal basic income type of experiment where we've been giving a bunch of people in Venezuela free crypto, just to learn about how, first of all, whether people can actually use crypto as money, right? The crypto, it's not tangible, it's just a number, a bunch of numbers you see on phone screens, and whether they can actually use it as money. Will they accept it as money? Will they be willing to, barter things using crypto? Those are some of the things that we want to learn about, as well as the effect of a basic income in a high inflation country where fiat currency has failed, miserably, and we've been using ETH, but we want to actually give USDC, but we couldn't. Part of the reason why we couldn't give USDC was because we also had to give a little bit ETH for them to be able to send USDC to another person, and each time they send USDC to another person, they also have to remember to send a little bit of ETH as well, so that the next person can also send USDC. And because of that limitation, we couldn't use USDC, even though USDC would have been much better for the experiment because the volatility isn't there. So it kind of enables use cases like that. And also, it's great for layer 2 as well. Using, with gasless sands, layer 2 solutions often require you to switch networks, but with gasless technology, you don't actually have to switch networks, because you can just create a signature, and someone else can submit that transaction for you, and that enables you to transact in layer 2 without having to switch networks, which is a huge UX issue. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of layer 2 networks haven't been able to gain much adoption, but it solves that as well. So yeah, I think that would be the biggest feature that I think a lot of people would be excited about. And as soon as we released USDC v2, Noah from Uniswap did an experiment with it and did the gasless, well, from the perspective of the user, of course, gasless swap and Uniswap, and it was really fun to see. Unfortunately, somebody still has to, pay for the transaction fee, but the gasless sands also enable you to charge fees in USDC, which again improves the user experience. And there are some other miscellaneous improvements, but that is the biggest feature that we have in USDC v2.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's important to note actually that I think for instance, me using a dApp or something, and having to deal with sort of needing to have a little bit of ETH to interact with that, and then use kind of an ERC20 like USDC in between. That's a really bad user experience, just using the app. But for people who could probably benefit most from utilizing, especially a stablecoin as technology, it's not even just a user experience thing. It's literally just a barrier to entry, right? And I think that distinction is pretty important, where sometimes it's not just UX, and some UX can actually be a barrier to entry. So that's pretty awesome to hear. And I guess maybe it would be possible to chat a little bit also about how that's working under the hood, kind of Like one example of this could be, similar to sort of like a meta transaction type approach. Curious to see kind of how USDC is implementing it, maybe at a high level.
Yeah, it is a meta transaction implementation. So it enables the sender to basically sign some sort of an authorization. You're authorizing someone to move funds or pull funds, and that authorization can be submitted to the blockchain network by anybody, and the person that's actually doing the act of submission is paying for the gas, and optionally, they could be compensated by charging fees in USDC. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool.
Whereas previously, the sender always had to be the person's pay for gas. Yeah.
Right. Totally. Okay. Awesome. And then just a reminder, anybody who's watching, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to throw up your hand. I'm going to ask my kind of famous last question, which is, basically, if you weren't sort of working on USDC full time, and you had some time to maybe take a look at building at the hackathon, what would sort of you be most interested in building on right now? What's sort of like either some topics or thoughts that are flowing through your head on projects that you wish you had time to build, or some unique areas of interest? I'm just kind of curious, like, what would you be hacking on if you were part of the event? Maybe we could start back reverse order with Erik, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I spend a lot of my time on USDC, but I guess, I don't know. So I haven't been able to look into it too much, but some of the like streaming payment stuff that is out there, I find pretty interesting. And so I'd probably start by digging into some of that stuff. But yeah, I think that probably, streaming payments, something like whatever is it, say Air or whatever that is. Kind of being able to like steadily just pay out people with USDC, or any sort of kind of solution where you could kind of like actually use it for kind of like day-to-day payments, which right now with the high gas prices is a little challenging.
Definitely. Cool. Awesome. Joao?
Oh, dang, I was going to say something around payments, and now I feel like I need to say something different.
I went in reverse order this time.
Yeah, but I'll stick to payment. I'm very interested in, maybe I should qualify as more commerce. I think there's a lot of good stuff, in place. Coinbase has Coinbase Commerce. There's a lot that has been done in the last number of years, but I still think it feels like we have a new wave of building blocks, a new wave of tools, including, gasless spends and USDC V2 and things like that. And I would be curious in, seeing how especially like two-sided marketplaces, the ones that have obviously buyers and sellers, and you have, payments being taken from buyers and sellers having to be paid for whatever is happening on the marketplace. It could be an Uber, or it could be an Airbnb or an eBay. And kind of really play deeply with the UX of such an application when that is built entirely on top of USDC. So my interest is perhaps more on the UX side for very mainstream use cases like commerce.
Cool. How about you, Nemil?
So I have hacked at 2 previous ETH events. I think the San Francisco one and the New York one. And I actually would like extend what I worked on in the New York one, but I think more and more we're gonna have funds held in DeFi protocols. I think the safety of those funds are paramount. And the question is, how do we create systems for that? So I think like the idea of basically DeFi insurance, some type of insurance products that allow decentralized insurance for people holding funds in protocols. And there's a few teams that have come to market, but I think there's also other ideas that still to be tried there. So I would say that's a really critical one for me. Another one is just tooling for other developers to be able to build on top. And so I think that Ethereum has come a long way from the financial stack. I think it's maybe not quite in the Stripe type experience that we might be used to. And I think there are things that we can do there of tooling to be able to make it easier to build things. And I think I'll leave with like 2 last plugs. Has been we have a request for startups that we've done, and there are a number, like we're willing through the USDC Bootstrap Fund, willing to fund startups that are like, or even programmers for hacking on ideas where they need initial USDC liquidity. And we also have a number of prizes here. So if you are working on at least some of those, we'd be super excited to talk.
Awesome. And then hopefully we didn't steal too many of your ideas, Pete.
Yeah, if I could hack this time, I would have worked on an interest-bearing, or maybe I shouldn't say interest, I should say rewards for legal reasons, rewards-bearing USDC, global Venmo with interest-bearing USDC. So basically what it is it would use something like Yearn Vault. So you put money in it, we'll pull funds in Yearn Vault. So you'll start earning interest on your USDC, and we'll put that on layer 2. We'll issue the same amount of tokens on layer 2. So the transactions between users will be free. You'll be fully covered using gasless cents, and fees are frankly so low in layer 2 that you can fully cover the transaction costs. It's like 0.00001 cent per transaction. So yeah, like the user experience would be like you open this app, then you transfer some USDC to it. It will then deposit it in your vault and issue you sort of a token that wraps that on layer 2. And that can then be used to transact. Yeah, so you can send money between users, and since it's a wrap token, it always be so when you even after sending, the receiver will also be receiving a token that's interest bearing, and I think it'd be a really cool way to provide sort of an opportunity for people in the less developed countries where lots of people are unbanked to start saving and earning interest. Now we'll have to think about how they can get USDC in the first place, and for that we'll probably think about maybe creating some sort of scratch card so they can purchase for USDC, or convert cell phone minutes or something to USDC. But there are a lot of cool ideas that I would love to work on to enable people in countries that are not that are underprivileged when it comes to financial systems.
Awesome, cool. I think you'll be happy to hear that there is a worldwide Venmo project that's being built right now, and so maybe we'll have that by the end of the event. But I guess maybe they're stealing your idea a bit too. So awesome. Okay, cool. So I mean, happy to kind of wrap it up here if there's no questions from the audience, but if there is, kind of it's your last random fun question. Look at that. Random fun question. How would you explain or pitch yield farming to folks that are not in crypto or getting into crypto? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I can take this.
I have not. I was gonna say, Nemil, I have not had the pleasure of doing that. I'm thinking that maybe this Thanksgiving is gonna be my first time trying to do that.
Yeah. So just for context, I think this is a super exciting time. The way I think about yield farming. So one thing is that I think about it from the protocol side. I've talked to a number of teams that are launching protocols. I see it almost like a marketing budget. It's a way for you to be able to take your tokens, distribute them in a certain way to drive usage, demand, virality of your protocol. So that's the way I kind of talk about it. It's like almost like a marketing scheme that you're using from the protocol side. For the user, I think the best analogy I had is like teaser rates and giveaways that like banks do. So I don't know if you knew, like banks used to give like toasters away if you came in and opened a bank account. That's like a more traditional example. More complex examples would be like high yield savings accounts would offer super high yields for a period of time. So for example, 90 days, you might get a much higher yield. And so that's the way I think I would explain it, is almost like it's a teaser rate to be able to do certain actions that the protocol or financial product needs or wants. And that is a way for you to get rewarded as part of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like the bonus miles that you get when you apply for credit cards. Like if you apply for, I'm not gonna mention the card, but you can get like up to 100,000 bonus miles if you meet like a minimum spend or whatever. I think it's very similar to that. Yeah, obviously it's not risk free, especially if it involves having to provide like liquidity pair to say Uniswap like EMMs, because there's impermanent loss, and that's, I think, I've been having trouble explaining impermanent loss. That's actually a pretty difficult concept for a lot of people to understand, and I think the term itself is also it's I think I forget exactly who came up with the term, but I remember reading that they regret calling it impermanent loss. But yeah, like what Nemil said, it's kind of a marketing budget. Yeah, you're getting toaster, you're getting bonus miles, things like that for using their service.
Cool. Awesome. Looks like there's another question. Looks like it's from YouTube. So I think it's for Pete. Pete, what do you think about kind of layer 2 versus like an Algorand or Solana based USDC?
Okay, I think when you by layer 2, I think you're referring to layer 2
I think
on top of
EVM
Ethereum.
compatible.
Yeah. So I think it's too early to tell whether Algorand or Solana will gain traction in terms of usage. There have been lots of Ethereum killer wannabes in the past, but none has been able to really steal the throne yet. And the big reason for that is composability, right? Ethereum already has a ton of projects on it, and people are. It's like people want to, well, first of all, build on top of existing projects, but also they want to make their project interoperable with other projects. And Algorand, I haven't, to be completely honest, I haven't really looked into Algorand or Solana deeply, but they're interesting projects and they have a ton of potential, I think. And USDC is going to be supporting those chains as well. But the benefit of layer 2 solutions is that it's Ethereum compatible, right? So if you, especially for the EVM compatible ones, if you have an existing project in Ethereum, it's really easy for you to just port it over to layer 2. And you can also easily move tokens between layer 1 and layer 2. And that's what makes those, I think, a lot more powerful than say using a completely different chain where you can't get that interoperability. I think Solana is working on some sort of bridge. I think I read about it recently. Bridge to Ethereum. I think that could be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I would like all of these for all of these projects to succeed and gain traction. But and I can't really pick winners or sites, but yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. But just personally, I prefer layer 2 just because I'm an Ethereum guy. Yeah.
Cool. Totally makes sense. And then maybe another question, which possibly there's no answer for or cannot disclose the answer for, but is there a timeline for USDC availability on Facebook Novi, which is apparently the Libra wallet that Facebook developed?
Yeah, and so I think over the last several months, you've seen USDC be available on more and more different chains. And so the goal, I think, our vision is basically that it's a standard. It's available for developers wherever they need it. And so I think Ethereum is a really one of the most important places for that to be. But I think the goal is over time that we're going to offer on more and more chains. I think I can't speak to specific items about Facebook Novi. I think they'll be launching with their own stablecoin. But I think that that's something that we're definitely considering and looking at Facebook and a number of other chains.
Cool. Awesome. We'll see if there's any last questions. Otherwise, we can wrap up. All right, we'll call it there. Okay, big thank you to the USDC team for taking the time to chat with us. Thanks everybody for the questions and your attendance and listening. Yeah, again, big appreciation for the USDC team and coming to support our event and for being part of it. I can't do it without you folks, and really appreciate that support. And of course, for everybody who's watching now or after, check out the USDC prizes as part of ETHOnline. And of course, like Nemil said, take a look at kind of the grant program and funding, startup funding program. There are a lot of resources out there to have you keep building and to support you as you're doing so. So make those available to yourself where possible. And big thank you again, and catch everybody on the Discord.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.